Welcome to Catholic Education Matters, the podcast that celebrates the beauty of Catholic education, highlighting excellence in academics, athletics, and the transformative power of faith. Join us as we share the stories of those making a lasting impact on Catholic education. Let's begin. Thanks, everybody, for joining us today. My name is Troy Van Vliet from St. John Paul II Academy Foundation, and I'm here today with Robb Nash. And before we get into it, Robb, I'm going to tell everybody a little bit about you and a little bit about your background, and then we'll dive right into it. But Robb's a Canadian musician, speaker, and mental health advocate whose life took a dramatic turn after a near-fatal car crash in 2002. So following this life-changing event, Robb channels his experiences into music, forming the Robb Nash Project, a band dedicated to inspiring and uplifting the youth. And through his powerful lyrics and engaging performance, Robb addresses critical issues such as mental health, suicide, and struggles faced by marginalized youth. So his work has reached thousands of people across Canada, providing them with hope, support, and tools to navigate their challenges. Robb's mission is to create safe space for youth to share their stories and to remind them that they are not alone in their struggles. Robb, how was that? Was that pretty accurate?
I don't think you need any more. I think we're good. Roll the credits. You did a great job.
We're going to have lots to talk about here. There's your story, your background. I was introduced to you. I didn't meet you, but at the prayer leadership breakfast in Vancouver a few months back, and Silveria told me all about you. And then I watched your video about your bio and your background to learn a little bit more about you before we had you on. And what an amazing story. And God bless you for what you do. But can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got to where you are today? I know you've told the story a gazillion times when you're going around touring, but we'd love to hear a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, and don't apologize for asking. You know, it's like telling somebody you love them. You can say it 1,000 times and still mean it. So when I tell my story, I still mean it. You know, in the moment it seems to help people, even though it's rare that people align exactly and, I've gone through the exact same thing. When you're willing to be vulnerable, other people become vulnerable around you. So, yeah, my story is unique. Most musicians, that's what they pictured their whole life at 5 years old. That's normally what you hear. Since 5 years old, that's all I wanted to be as a musician, and I love music. I had 5 older brothers and sisters that had like a family band. They all grew up, and then later I was born, so I didn't make it into the family band. So we have a musical family, but I never thought I'd do it for a living. For me, I just played sports. That was, I loved music, but I played sports. I actually, I'm 6'5". You can't probably notice on the screen.
Well, I'm 6'6". We were talking about being competitive, so.
Oh, there you are. Yeah. Okay. That's your 1-0 for you, right?
1-0.
So like, at 15, I got a scholarship and I was playing. Not that I'm not trying to make it sound like I was going pro or anything like that, but every friendship that I had, everything was through sports, and and then I was 17 years old, and me and my friends went for a bit of a joyride. I live in Manitoba, so we see some extremes in weather. We have the coldest winters, but also the hottest summers in Canada. And there were some icy roads, and you're teenagers, and you feel indestructible. And we were almost back at our school. We pulled out to pass one last car, and we got hit by a semi-truck, and it crushed our vehicle. And my friends, they were fine, but they ran from the vehicle thinking it might explode, is what they told me, but that doesn't usually happen. And they looked back and they saw that I was just laying there. And my story's interesting because most of it I've been told, like I don't remember an accident. I don't remember being in a hospital or anything like that. So I've been told pieces of my story along the way. In fact, a little while ago, a friend of mine goes, I think I just met the first responder that saved your life. And I got to have lunch with him, and it was really unique. He was, you know, he was driving home from work, supposed to turn left down a country road, but he heard a big crash, and he's like, and he went to check it out, and he had just taken a first responders course. And so I met with him, and he goes, yeah, he was just in shock as we talked, because he says, like, it came up on you and you had no pulse, you weren't breathing. And he said, and I started going through waiting for the ambulance to resuscitate me. And, you could be cut wide open, but if your heart's not beating, you don't bleed, right? It's got to be flowing. So he said, I knew your heart started beating when blood started pouring out of your head, because I had crushed this side of my skull. And then talking with his wife, like, he had tried to hold my skull together so I wouldn't bleed out before the ambulance got there. And he had called the hospital every day for like months, just asking, can you just tell me if that kid made it? And with privacy laws, I said, sorry, we can't share that with you. And so when we met, to that day, he didn't know if I had made it. So it was like a healing moment for him. It was a healing moment for me to meet this guy that had done this. And yeah, so I was brought to the hospital, and your parents get that call that no one wants to get. Your son was in an accident, doesn't look good. And yeah, they rebuilt my skull with titanium, and I'm still having surgeries and stuff. But I woke up and I didn't know who I was or my parents for a while. And yeah, I don't remember being in a hospital, and I had some brain damage. And then you go from 6'5" playing sports to a guy getting bathed by his mom, and you can imagine where your thoughts go. And people, often come to comfort you, and they'll throw cliches at you with good intentions. Some people would tell me, well, I guess this was your fate, Rob. And then you go like, why was this my fate? Why isn't this someone else's, right? Some people in my own family told me that, well, you're clearly a bad kid, so God spanked you with a semi because you're a bad kid. Now, that's nothing anyone wants to hear, so your anger now goes to God.
Yeah.
But the most common thing people would say to me is, and they say it with good intentions. And since my accident, I met tons of people in prison, hospitals, funerals, and people always say this. They say everything happens for a reason. And you say this with good intentions, but man, I've met with so many people, and that statement does way more damage than good, because now I'm laying there going, well, what's the reason I was hit by a semi? Like, is it because I'm a bad kid? Is it because I said that to my dad or did this at school? And I was just spiraling, and then somebody came up to me and he said the most amazing thing, and it changed my life. Like, I had been suicidal for 2 years. If this is how life is, you're a bad kid and you get spanked by a semi, there's a big reason for it. I don't want to be alive.
How long after that?
I was that way for 2 years.
For 2 years.
And nobody knew. Like, if people watched the documentary that just made about me, if my friends would watch that documentary, my high school friends or family, I'm sure a lot of them would be like, there's no way Rob was suicidal. He's the life of the party, which is usually the case. We put on a mask, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I was like that for years. And then this guy came up to me, and he said the most amazing thing, and it changed my life. He said, you're trying to figure out the reason you were hit by a semi, right? I said, yeah. He goes, I know the reason. I said, please tell me. And he goes, the reason you were hit by a semi is because you were going too fast on an icy road. And that sounds simple, Troy, but it's free. I didn't have to be mad at fate or God or trying to figure out the reason it happened. It's like, we're all going to see bad days. We're going to experience tragedy, and we have to decide what we're going to do with those bad days. And my whole perspective changed, and I was like, I wasn't angry and bitter anymore. And I was like, man, not a lot of people get a second chance. Maybe I should do something with this, because that whole time after the accident, I was terrified to fall asleep, because every night I was having the same nightmare, and my nightmare was watching my funeral, and nobody showed up. Nobody cared that I lived or that I died, because I had never done anything for anyone but me. So I was like, not a lot of people get a second chance. I should do something with this. And I screamed at the sky, and I was like, I want to do something that matters. Like, I want my life to count. And I thought I'd hear a voice telling me to move to a third world country and, build a well or something, and I didn't hear that, but you know how we all get promptings, right? Clear as day, what I felt was this: is find the semi driver that hit you and tell him you're alive. And I was like, whoa. And it took a while, phoning police and saying, "Can I get the name of the semi driver that
Yeah.
ran me over?" And the
Yeah.
cops are like, "No, that's not how that works."
Yeah.
But this prompting wouldn't leave me, and I kept talking with the police. I'm like, I think if this guy needs to know I'm alive. And this one cop's like, all right, you didn't get this from me. And the trucker was from the US. And I called him and he picked up and I said, is this so and so? And he got real quiet. And I said, do you remember the car accident up in Canada? And he goes, yeah. I just felt in my heart that I should tell you, like, I'm okay, I'm alive, I survived. And he goes, wow, I'm just so sorry about your friend. I said, what friend? He goes, the guy that died and crushed his skull. I'm like, no, that's me. And I could tell it like set him free, but what happened in that story isn't about what happened to him, it's what happened to me. Like I said, I'd never done anything for anyone but me till that moment. I was like, ooh, that felt good. And I didn't have to move to a third world country to
Yeah.
get that feeling of significance. And I was like, I want more of that. And man, I was like, oh, how do I get more of that? Like, that's within us. We're supposed to impact the lives of the people around us. And I was like, man, I've got these dark thoughts that I've been struggling with. And I'm like, there's got to be other people like me having those thoughts and not talking about it. And I was like, maybe I should tell my story. I was like, yeah. And then I was like, what's a good way to tell a story? I was like, music. Every young person has headphones in their ears walking around. So I was like, music might give me that platform to tell my story. So I started a band. Man, we put together a band. We started writing songs, and we did the
Yeah.
first show. We're going to change the world. And there was 4 people in the audience, and it was like, oh, like, man, no, we want to change the world. But now I listen to our first album, and I'm really glad there was only 4 people there because we kind of sucked, but we got a little better after a
Yeah.
few albums, got a record deal, ended up having 4 top 10 hits on the radio in Canada, and we were working on a potential record deal down in the States, and then I got an offer to do a 9-month tour going through prisons, youth detention centers, and schools and reserves, telling my story, just me and my acoustic. But it would be 9 months with no pay, and
Yeah.
everyone thought, well, you can't do that. Like, but I actually walked away from my record deal, my publishing deal, my management deal, and I went and started going to schools and I started writing songs about the people that I was meeting, songs about, people heard my vulnerability and they started being vulnerable and I started writing those songs. Then after that 9 months, I was like, what's next? And then other people, schools, communities started saying, hey, we'd like to hear your story and
Yeah.
songs that you're writing. And then what started with a 9-month tour has been over 12 years of going across from coast to coast to coast in Canada and seeing a lot of people having breakthroughs.
It's incredible. Absolutely incredible. So first of all, an amazing recovery. And somebody was looking out for you when that paramedic had the calling to just come and hold your head together. My God.
Yeah.
Like, wow, get your heart going again, and then waiting for the ambulance. Like, oh, so first of all, an incredible recovery, and then a second recovery because you're struggling with depression and why me and why did this happen? And then struggling with everything happens for a reason. That is a very dangerous. That can be misinterpreted in many ways, and that can destroy people and get people
Yeah.
searching in the wrong direction. So, and then this turnaround to say this tragic accident that happened to me, and then you're suffering afterwards. Some mental health, if I might use that terminology, mental health challenges.
Mhm.
To turning it around and being an advocate now for to help people and to specifically help the youth is
Yeah.
huge.
Yeah.
Can I ask you, Rob, how did your faith was there a foundation in that helped you through any of this? Was there a turning point anywhere or
Yeah, absolutely. Like I, like my mom was born and raised in Mexico. My dad's from Belize, like Central America. So I grew up in a very conservative home where I
yeah,
did get kind of the teaching of, God will strike you with lightning or spank you with a semi truck. So I had never I'd never really heard about the love of God, just the fear of God, and I think people can get that's a bad for every mile of road, there's 2 miles of ditch,
Yeah.
and all I heard was that, so that's all I knew, and I was like, well, I better figure out like why I'm here, and is there life after death? All these things. Who is God if He's not the one spanking you with the semi? And yeah, I started pursuing that, and it was in a church parking lot that I got that prompting to phone the semi driver, and I just realized, like I think. People sing, he's got the whole world in his hands, but I, I think I think we live in a world that's really broken and there's a lot of pain, but there's enough food for everybody. There's enough water for everybody. We were meant to take care of one another. And I think, in a walk, just like I had a prompting to call the semi driver or this first responder, had a prompting to take a first responders course the week before, and you start to see these things. And, I, you just start realizing that there's something deeper about faith and just listening to things that may not always make sense to everybody around you, and man, pursuing that is something beautiful. We're meant to take care of one another and spread the good news, and all of us have a different calling. And even when I say I thought I'd have to move to another country, in a third world country, but some people that is the calling in their life. But I think
Right.
for me, and I took a lot of flack, I still do, from some of my family for playing rock music and having tattoos and all that stuff from a conservative background. But I'll put it this way: the biggest way that my faith applies to the work that I do is, I think, you know you've read it. If you seek, you'll find. And I think we live in a world where people aren't seeking anymore. We're not asking questions. And for me, it's like, if I can get youth asking the question is, what if there's more to me than suicide? What if there's more to me than this addiction? Or what if I have purpose? Because I believe if we can get people starting to ask important questions again, they'll find the answers. And even like, I needed an antidote to the everything happens for a reason. I was like, well, so many people are hearing that. And then one day it was on stage, and it just like another word just lands in your heart, and it was like, bad things don't happen for a reason. Bad things happen with potential. Like, my accident had the potential to leave me angry, bitter, suicidal the rest of my life. Or there's the potential I can take my story and walk it out and tell it and help other people that might be going through something similar. Like, tragedy has the potential to tear apart an individual or a
Mhm.
family or a school or a community or a province or a country. We've seen it. But tragedy also has the potential to bring people together. Like, I speak at too many funerals, and I always say that to families: hey, this has the potential to tear your family apart or tear your school apart. But
Yeah.
there's the potential that this could bring your family closer together. We have to choose. And like, I get into some debates. Like, one guy goes, well, Rob, like, it's kind of good that you were hit by that semi, isn't it? And I was like, no, it's not good to get hit by a semi. He goes, but look what you've done with it. I said, but the semi didn't make me do this. He goes, but if you could go back in time, you'd do it all over again, wouldn't you? I was like, no, I wouldn't. Like, the semi didn't make me do these things. It's like, like, we can learn from hitting rock bottom without question,
Yeah.
but it's not the antidote for everybody. Like, one person gets cancer, and they rethink their whole, whether it's stage one, two, three, four. You're like,
Yeah.
all of a sudden you're making every day count. You might change your diet. You want to make every memory and every day and every conversation matter. The next person gets a cancer diagnosis and goes like, why me? And they can get into addictions for the first time as you struggle with why I'm going through this. And I'll be honest with you, Troy, like, when I started going to schools, I never talked about that out fact that I was suicidal in that time. I would have never
Mm.
said that. I was just like, because what would the students think of me? What would the teachers
Yeah.
think of me if I revealed that weakness? So my whole thing in the beginning was just, hey, make every day count. You never know what could happen tomorrow. Like, I had an accident, like, but one day we were called to a school in Ontario, and Principal called our project and said, "We heard you're really effective talking with youth, and we just lost a student to suicide." And on this girl's note, it revealed that she had a pact with a friend, like a deal. If you kill yourself, I'll kill myself. But the principal said, "We don't know who it is. We've got 1,000, 2,000 students. We don't know
Wow.
which kid it is. Can you come right away? We heard you're really effective." So now, like, what do you do in that moment, by the way? We don't charge for anything we do. So we don't say, "Well, our flights are this, our hotels are this." And
Yeah.
we just went. But now there's whatever it was, 1,000, 1,200 students in front of me. And there's somebody sitting in front of me that's about to take their life. And I'm supposed to find them. And I knew the one thing that was brought to my attention recently is how often I talk about promptings. But I had another prompting in that moment where I was like, I need to say this for the first time, that I was suicidal myself. And my heart was racing, Troy. I was like, I can't.
Wow.
I've never said this to my band. I've never said this to my family, my parents. And now I've got 1,200 strangers in front of me. Oh, my heart was racing. What is everyone going to think of me? But I got to this place where I was like, I know there's someone in this room that's thinking about taking their life. I was like, you're not alone. I was there once too. And it was like, that felt really good. That was like 1,000 pounds off me. And man, the conversations after that show, it wasn't just people asking for autographs and selfies.
Yeah.
It was hugs and like, thank you for that. Like, and the depth of the conversations went to another level. And then this girl walks up to me and she pulls a note out of her pocket and she goes, "Here, I want you to have this." It's an old note, all folded up. And I was like, "What's this?" She goes, "My suicide note. I was going to kill myself this weekend." She's like, "I don't need this anymore." And the principal and school counselor were standing next to me, and we found her. And they walked off to get the help that they needed. And I was like, what just happened? Like, she didn't write that note while we were sitting in the room.
Yeah.
Old, and I talked to some police that do a lot of work with suicide prevention. They said, "Oh yeah, when we come on the scene of a suicide, very rarely is the note freshly written. People usually carry it with them for 2 to 3 months before they take their life, waiting for somebody to push them over the edge, or for somebody to reach out and let them know they're not alone. Say something that resonates, right?" So then it was the next day, and I was like, another 1,000 students in front of me, and I was like, well, if the stats are true, pre-COVID, 1 in 5 teenagers had seriously considered suicide in the last 12 months. 1 in 5. So another 1,000 students. And I was like, what if I said it again? I was like, I know there's someone in this room thinking about taking their life. I'm like, you're not alone. I was there once too. And a young man came up and hands me his note. I was like, oh, this is now a focus for me. It's not all we talk about, but that was the beginning of, I was looking for them right here. That was the beginning of now 971 suicide notes that we've been handed. Kids carrying them with them. And that doesn't include all the kids that get home and make TikTok videos, YouTube, Instagram videos when they get home and they just rip up their note saying, "I don't need this anymore." In fact, when we perform, one of the songs we play, like we have big LED walls behind us, so the music video's in sync while we're playing. The lyrics are there so the kids can see what we're singing. And there's one song that I have called "The Thief of Colors," and it's just a compilation of kids ripping up their notes or burning their notes, and you got students sitting there watching this compilation, and I want them to see, look, not every story of mental illness ends in a suicide. Not every story of addiction ends in an overdose, because our media, like tragedy sells, so media, that's
Yeah.
where they go usually, but we need to balance those stories and show that not every story ends in a tragedy. So when we perform now, I'll tell a story of a girl we met in lockdown, like we do prison shows and stuff, and I'll tell her
Mhm.
story. It sounds, and I was like, yeah, we wrote this song together. I'm like, do you want to meet her? And she walks out on stage and we perform together. Met this
Oh,
one kid on a reserve in northern Saskatchewan, and I tell his story. It's like, he didn't have a suicide note, he had a book. He had written 100 pages of things that he hated about himself. And I said, "You want to meet him?" And he walks out on stage and performs with us. So these kids are like, "Whoa!" Just hit them with inspiration and yeah, like just show them your
Oh
story
man.
doesn't have to end in pain either, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I think a lot of it, oh, I've got so many questions here now. I'll start. I first comment being, first of all, thank you for what you're doing. Like, I mean, God bless you for that because it's, yeah, there's not enough of it. Absolutely not enough of it. Mental health is a huge, huge issue. One of the questions I've got for you right now, do you have a theory as to why it is so rampant today among teens? I mean, I've got my own theories, but why do you think it's such a problem today? More so, I mean, when I was in high school, never heard of it. Like, I didn't know, not just I didn't know anybody that committed suicide. I didn't even know of anyone that committed suicide
Yeah.
or wanted to or what have you, you know. And today it's the number, is it now the number one cause, number one leading cause of death for youth?
Second leading cause of death among youth, yeah.
Second leading? Okay.
Yeah, I believe so, yeah. It's and that's, and it never used to be that way. And
Yeah.
honestly, Troy, I could go down about 4,000 paths of why I think it's happening.
Yeah.
Obviously, and social media is massive. Kids learn from each other.
Yeah.
And it's, I'll tell you this, when we started, the biggest change we've seen is just that it's getting younger and younger. Like in the last few years, we got called to one community where they lost an 8-year-old, one that lost a 7-year-old. And if you thought that wasn't an option when you were in high school, like at 7 years old, you should be playing with Lego. How do
Yeah.
you even know that's an option? So there's a lot of different ways I can go. I think in the West we're so focused on more. I think it's the
Yeah.
most
Yeah.
evil four-letter word there is.
Yeah.
And I think we've lost priority of what is important. Again, my mom is born and raised in Mexico. My dad's from Belize. Last time I went to Belize to visit all my cousins and stuff, I only told one cousin I was coming because I just didn't want to make a big deal of it. I wanted to relax.
Mm-hmm.
But everyone found out I was there and there was a big party. 40, 50 people were hanging out.
Mm-hmm.
Next day we go out to the ocean and then we go to the caves. And then after about 8 days, I was like, hey, like, guys, it's like, we don't have to have a big party every day. And they're like, what do you mean? I was like, well, don't you have jobs? And they're like, yeah. I said, what did you tell your bosses? We told them that our family's here. I was like, and they were okay with that? And they're like, of course. And I'm not kidding you, Troy. 6 months later, my cousin came up from Belize to Canada and surprised me. Hey, Rob, I'm in Canada. I was like, oh, cool. I can meet you for coffee next Thursday at like 8:45. And he's like, no, no, I want to like hang out for a little while. Like, I want to see Canada for a few weeks and hang out with you. And I was like, and then I just started describing, well, it's not how we do things here. I can't just not work. And I tried to explain our society versus theirs, and ooh, it felt gross. But our cars are shinier and our houses are bigger.
Yeah.
And I tell that whole story of where our priorities are at, and we keep everything inside. COVID was, I talk about this quite a bit in
Yeah.
podcasts and interviews. Like, man, when COVID hit, we were all pretty nervous. Is this going to kill us all? But pretty quickly, we saw young people, they were doing pretty good.
Yeah.
Their immune systems were all right. So I was
Yeah.
thinking, I had an accident when I was in high school, and I was told to isolate and stay home and don't go to school and don't see your friends and don't play sports, don't go into a gym. I know what happened to my mental health, and I was like, we're going to put every kid through this? What I went through?
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. Look out. Brace yourself.
Yeah, and man, we hear from the schools, and man, the communication is just so different. But yeah, and even like I could go down, like, why is this happening? Bullying. If you were getting bullied at school, it was over at 3:30 when school was over. Now it's
Yeah.
you know
Right.
what's happening. online. It's brutal. The young girls, the image that they have to try to hold to
Yeah.
look a certain way. Like there's so many pressures on young people,
Yeah.
and parents are often super focused on their own careers too. There's a different dynamic at home. So there's a lot of avenues I could go with why I think it's happening, but there's a few points.
My overarching belief on why, well, I think, to be honest, I believe we're crumbling, especially in the last 10 years as a country, but the West in general is kind of falling apart. Um, People aren't having kids. I think it's down to 1.6 kids now per couple or something. Like we're below replacement rate
Right.
in the West. And why is that? And there's a lot of factors. It's funny. I was in Napa Valley last week at the Napa Institute, which is I won't get into it, but anyway, I met a doctorate down there who just wrote a book on why young people aren't having kids anymore.
Hmm.
And we were kind of getting into the weeds with it. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a writer. I'm not an educator. I'm none of these things. But I find these kind of topics fascinating. And uh, and she came up with all these different sort of micro level reasoning, which is piling on and piling on. And I'm like, my theory is much simpler on this. It's like, the West was founded and built on Judeo-Christian values. Like, can't argue that. That's what it was. Our legal systems were all, and laws and things like that, we're all inspired by that. And we were all thinking the same way because we had all of those same similar belief systems. And as Christianity, I'll say specifically, as it started to crumble, we used to say the Lord's Prayers in school. When I was in elementary school, in public elementary school, we'd say the Lord's Prayers, and everybody was on the same page. Nobody was fighting that. Nobody was saying, at that stage, we got to get rid of this. This is, separation between church and state and that kind of stuff. Those were words that were said, but they weren't really believed because it's like you can't have a foundation society without some form of guiding light. And unfortunately, it can't be government because government screws up everything. The more they get involved, the more government gets involved, the more messed up society gets, in my humble opinion. I think a lot of people would agree with that. So when you take away the faith that's guiding a country and a civilization, the West specifically, when you take that away, you can coast for a while on those morals that were established over hundreds and hundreds of years. You can the moral compass that's been established, but eventually you get rid of faith. When it crumbles, now the family starts to crumble, and when the family starts to crumble, now, like you talked about, fear of God and things like that. Even if that was the only reason why you were doing good was because you feared God, at least it kept you on the straight and narrow. And when that started to crumble, when the family starts to crumble, well, now society crumbles. Everything becomes a mess, and there's a question mark behind everything. And everything, every rule, there's a question mark behind it. Now it's, what is truth? Well, there's your truth, there's my truth, but what is the truth? You can't agree on that anymore. And everything starts to fall apart. And it's where, once again, my humble opinion, where you see a reversion now because things are a mess. You see people either reverting back to their faith or even converting. They had never been brought up in faith at all because they're going like, there's got to be more to this. There has to be more to life. And like, we can't look to government to fix everything. We can't look to government to be the answer. It's like, well, the government should pay for this. The government should pay for that. It doesn't always work that way. Well, when it does work that way, it's falling apart.
Sure.
And so anyhow, that's my simplified theory as to what's happening in the West. And the more we do it, the more we allow that to happen. And if you don't have a guiding light, like I said, if you haven't got that, if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for it. Everything just starts to
Yeah.
crumble and fall apart. So, So what's great is that what I see right now with you, that you're going into these schools, these kids are lost. So many of them are just lost. There isn't. And what are they replacing this guiding light with? They're replacing it with what they see flashing in their face on social media, like constant algorithms of advertising. It's like, oh, I'm interested in that. Great, you're interested. We're going to feed you more of that because that's what we can sell you on,
Yeah.
And the kids are the products.
Yeah. When
That's
you said the word right there again, more of
yeah,
more and more. And one thing, like, hopefully you'll get to come see one of our shows,
yeah,
because, this isn't something I came up with myself, but what we try to show kids is like what you're actually like. The antidote to pain or sadness isn't actually like happiness. Like, happiness is like if good things around you are happening, we call that happiness. But then if your things aren't good around you, like if you're letting your circumstances around you dictating your mood or your
yeah,
emotions, you're in trouble. Like, but
right.
peace you can find in the midst of a storm, right? And I think the antidote for sadness is actually purpose, and that's some of the roots that you're talking about. So, like for
Yeah,
us, I always say to young people, like, everybody knows what they do. Walk up to any adult and ask them, what do you do? And everyone has an answer. Ask them, why do you do it? And very few people know what to say. And that's
mhm,
a sad thing. But that's what we try to get people to think about. And I think the reason we've had, the reason I'm passionate about this isn't because I feel sorry for a kid like me that's suicidal. I actually don't feel sorry for them. I don't think we're losing. I think we are losing some of the most gifted people. I've never
mhm,
been asked to speak or sing at a funeral, whether if somebody's taken a life where the mom or dad says, it's a good thing our daughter's gone, she had nothing to offer this world. It's always the opposite. She's so gifted. And I've talked with hundreds of thousands of teenagers now, and now I can sum things up pretty quickly. The reason I do this is because we're losing some of the most gifted people. When I was growing up, my friends, I watched them go through something tough and they could just keep going, and I couldn't. I would get to my room and bawl my eyes out, and I thought I was cursed with this extra emotion. Like, why do I hurt so deeply? All that time, I didn't know I was a songwriter. But
yeah,
this extra emotion that I had wasn't for me. It was for the people around me. It was meant to be, even if it's dark, it was meant to be poured into a song. Like, it's tears aren't meant to be kept in your system. I say tears are kind of like not like poison, but they need to get flushed out once in a while. But we live in a world, especially for guys, suck it up, be a man, don't talk about your emotions. So for me, like, I'll give you, like, when I talk with somebody, I walk them through it. And usually when I meet kids after a show, a counselor brings a kid backstage to meet with me, I can walk through it. But the other day I'm at an airport and I'm about to board my flight, and a girl runs up to me, and I know I've got a couple minutes, but she's just crying. She goes, Robb Nash, your music means so much to me. I was diagnosed with depression. I have suicidal thoughts, and I was like, oh, okay. I'm like, I knew I had no time, but I was like, so you're like me. And she's like, what do you mean? I was like, you hurt deeply, but you love deeply, don't you? And she was like, yeah. I was like, you hurt deeply, but you can see when others are hurting, can't you? And she was like, yeah. I was like, yeah, you have what I have, and it sucks sometimes, but you can
mhm,
help a lot of people with that. I was like, isn't it interesting that you and I get diagnosed with depression, which is very real? Nobody gets diagnosed with empathy. And she went, huh. And you could just see the reframing of her. I'm like, so do you dance? Do you sing? Do you paint? She goes like, yeah, I'm in dance. How'd you know? There is a weird connection between the arts and mental illness.
mm,
These emotions, that's why we lose so many artists. Kurt Cobain, Chris Cornell, Chester Bennington. I'm talking about rock artists that you may not know.
yeah.
But it
No,
take, 'cause you've
not
got,
all.
yeah, but you've got this emotion inside of you, and it feels like a curse sometimes. But we're actually telling young people, it's like, don't hold it in, channel it into a song or a painting or a journal. Like, don't
Yeah,
bottle it up or shut it off. Like, and depression is very real, and I'm not always against medication, but that's usually our answer. Here, take this; it'll turn that off. It's like I've been on every medication, and there's moments where I'm like, cool, I don't experience all of this, but I also
Yeah.
can't write a song now. I'll tell you a true story. Hopefully, I don't screw up any of the details here, but you can look it up yourself. Anybody listening or watching, there's an 8-year-old girl that was called into the principal's office. Her parents are called in. Principal says, yeah, we're kicking your daughter out of school. She can't sit still. She can't focus. She can't think straight. She distracts all the kids. To give examples of how useless she is, here comes all the teachers. So the teachers came in, and this 8-year-old girl says, I was sitting on my hands. I didn't want to be the girl they were describing that was so antsy and distracted.
Mhm.
And then finally a teacher came in and said to the parents, can I talk to you in the hallway for a second? So teachers or the parents said, sure. So they walk out. As they're leaving the room, teacher flipped on the radio and closed the door, and the parents are standing in the hallway. The parents are like, what do you want to tell us? Nothing. I want to show you something. Look through the window. And because she flipped the radio on, this little girl was dancing around the room. I said,
Mm.
there's nothing wrong with your daughter. She's a dancer. She needs to be moving to think. Tell her, put her in dance class. Give her a way to channel that. So they put her in dance class. Sum it up quickly. She went on to the Royal Ballet. She met Andrew Lloyd Webber. She wrote all the choreography for Cats. She wrote all the choreography for Phantom of the Opera.
Wow.
And she's now a multimillionaire with dance colleges all over the world because one person looked at her and said, you're not cursed, you're gifted. Nowadays, we try to make her sit still, right? And I'm not like, and there's a hierarchy of school courses, which ones are important, that were all
Yeah.
based on the Industrial Revolution. There's a great TED Talk by Sir Ken Robinson that you should watch on that. He tells the story I just told you about the dancer. But,
Mhm.
you know, there's these ways of channeling. I did a show for all the addictions foundations in Alberta. They all came together, and I'm looking at this and I go, I'm not here because I feel sorry for you guys either. I was like, look, addicts, we think we're cursed because we can't quit. Our friends can party on the weekend. They can shut off and go back to school or go back to work. Addicts, we can't. We're still going on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and we think we're cursed because we can't stop. I'm like,
Mm.
that's not a curse either. And all these addicts are looking at me. I'm like, look, whatever we do, we're all in. Like, I'm an addict. I'm an all-in guy. When I got a hold of a guitar and I started a band, I was all in. I wasn't going to quit. And guess what? When I got a hold of drugs, I was all in.
Yeah.
That's not a curse. That's a gift. You point that at the right thing, you'll excel at whatever you want. Point at the wrong thing, it'll destroy your life. I got last award I got was for some of the work I do with trafficking, human trafficking, and just the mental health that happens within that. And went to this seminar, and I'm talking with people that work specifically within trafficking. They said, you can pull that person that traffics, you put them in a room with 100 kids, and they'll be like, she's vulnerable. That boy's vulnerable. She's vulnerable. They can point them out. Whew, man, my blood was boiling, and I was
Wow.
like, oh, that I was so upset. And I got to bed that night, and I was like, and every day I try to say, did I learn something today, or did I teach something today? I better have made today count. I better have done something. And I was thinking about these traffickers. My blood was boiling. These guys can go into a room and they can spot the vulnerable kid. And then I went back to my logic. The place that you think you're cursed is probably your gift set. And I was like, wait a second. They can spot the vulnerable kid in the room. That's what I have. 10 kids come up to me after a show. Some
Mhm.
are asking for autographs and a selfie. And all of a sudden, my heart just, that girl right there is vulnerable. I'll just be like, are you okay? What do you mean? Do you have something on you that you need to get rid of? And all of a sudden they pull out a suicide note or a razor blade, or they break down in tears and share their hearts.
Wow.
And I was like, that trafficker has been given a God-given gift to spot the vulnerable person in the room. They could
Yeah.
be a counselor, they could be a social worker, they could be a youth leader.
Yeah.
Now it's been perverted and distorted in the worst way you can imagine. But that's a gift
Yep.
too.
It is.
They can spot the vulnerable kid in the room. What could they do with that?
Yeah.
When I do prison shows, like I like doing, like we've done maximum security prisons and all. I thoroughly love those shows. But I try to focus on youth prisons when we do them, because youth prisons, a 15-year-old's getting out, no matter what they've done.
Yeah.
And so it's like, hey, you're going to get a second chance. What are you going to do when you get out of here? You know, like talking to them about that. And I'll tell you what, you read the headline, you meet a kid that murdered their parents, that's a terrible headline. Then you actually sit down and listen to them and hear their story, and you're like, oh, wow. Like, we don't all start from the same place, you know, and we can be really quick to judge some of these things, but whew, I might be here also. So it's like having that grace, and honestly, like, again, I'm 6'5" and a beard and a mohawk and tattoos, and it's not by accident. You know, I like showing that tough kid in the back of the room or in the prison. It's like you can be tough and edgy and rough on the outside and still be filled with love and compassion and mercy and grace on the inside, you know, and show girls they should expect that as well.
Yeah.
You know, which is huge. But yeah, there's a lot within it. And then I'll tell you, we started getting tagged so many of these kids that were ripping up their suicide notes. They started tattooing the lyrics of our songs on their arms where they used to cut. And I was like, that's a song I wrote in my bathroom, and now it's tattooed on somebody's arm. And I was like, man, how do I kind of repay, if a song I wrote is that much part of their life, how could I like repay that? So I took the names and signatures from all the suicide notes and I tattooed them here and filled them up. And I did this for the same reason I said before. It's like, I want to be able to show people, like, look, these are all signatures of people just like you that had those thoughts, and they're still here. And when COVID hit, a lot of people said, well, so many schools and communities were like, we need your help now more than ever with mental health, you know, and we couldn't do our performances, you know. And there was a film crew that had been hired by CBC to do a little piece on me. And they followed us for a few weeks on tour, and they were just all in tears. And they said, man, we feel like our whole lives of doing production was to one day tell your story. So when COVID hit, I called them. I was like, you still want to help tell a story? I wanted to go around the country and find some of these kids. Where are they now? And so they did. And I just wanted them to do a documentary just on that. But they're like, Rob, we need to tell your story. You're kind of the glue that puts it all together, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So they did a documentary, and we put it on YouTube just a few months ago. And hearing some of these kids' stories, we wanted to do that. And we actually, with teachers, social workers, counselors, and psychologists, we actually broke the documentary into episodes, and it's turned into like a teacher resource, or some provinces they call it a curriculum. But kids sit in class and they watch a 10-minute movie about my story, and then they watch a music video, and then they journal about what they learned from my story. Then they watch Dylan's story. His name's up here. They watch his story, journal about it. They watch 4 episodes, and then after 4 episodes, they're asked to journal about their own story. And those journal entries go straight to the school counselor. And consistently in all schools that are taking it, 20% of the kids are self-identifying that they need help with their mental health, and 60% were flying completely under the radar. Teachers saying that girl's been in our classes for 3 years and we had no idea that was going on up there or at home. So that's now a follow-up to when we do our shows.
Right.
We were going all over the place, school to school. The demand got so huge for what we were doing that we couldn't do that anymore, and I almost got burned out. Talk about that in the documentary too. But now we go to a bigger venue, like we're coming to Surrey in fall and to Bell Center, and we'll just bring in 5-10 schools to a show, and I tell my story, we play a song, I tell story. It's about a girl. She walks out, performs. Stories and songs, stories and songs. And in the West, we'll talk about mental health now a little more, and physical health and emotional health, but we don't talk a lot about spiritual health, and that's a sad thing. And that's one thing I like about working with the indigenous people is like that's an open door right there. Is even a drum beat is spiritual to indigenous people. And when we started going to reserves, at first it was like, okay, white boy, what's the catch, right?
Mm-hmm.
But once they saw that it was real and genuine, like people can tell when you're real, when you
Yeah.
mean it. And yeah, some of the chiefs had a ceremony and they gave me my spirit name. The indigenous people, they don't call me Robb Nash, they call me Bear Chief, like the healer or the protector. They said, so that, yeah, I actually tattooed that on my hand, a bear with chief across the fingers. And
Ah,
man, and I'll tell you this story, Troy. Tell
yeah.
me, listen to the layers of this. We were on a reserve 4 hours from a major city. And normally we're the only non-indigenous people. My bass player, she's indigenous now,
Yeah.
but at the time there wasn't, everybody was indigenous in the room except for us, but there was two black nuns in the audience. I was like,
Oh,
huh. I was so curious. I'd never seen this before, and I walked up and I was like, can I ask where you're from? They said, we're from Africa. I was like, and what are you doing here? They said, our church in Africa heard about the issues on the reserves in Canada. They moved us here. We got a vehicle and we drive to the city and we get groceries to feed the kids at lunch that don't have lunch. Now we send our money out there, which is fine if that's what you feel called to do.
yeah.
What did they raise in their currency to pull that off? They're feeding our kids in Canada.
Yeah.
And how many of us look in our own backyard, like to see what's going on? Like the layers to that story just had me in tears.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
I know. I remember my late father was like that. He traveled to some third world countries, and my dad did well in business, and he was like, it was like a calling to him. It's like, am I supposed to sell everything that I own and go and help these people on the other side of the world? And but then he also realized there is so much help needed right at home, and you're proving that with the tours that you're going on. You know, you brought up COVID and what we did with our kids. We flipped what we normally do on its head in terms of, it was always, women and children first. We'd always make sure you always, because the children, that is the future of society. That is our future. Without the kids, we have nothing. There is absolutely nothing that will continue society's success and growth. And instead, what we did during COVID, and this may hit some nerves with some people here, but I'm going to dare to throw it out there. We decided to protect the elderly at the cost of our youth. And by keeping our youth at home for months and months, in some areas it went even longer, and we devastated them in their education. We devastated our kids socially. We took athletics away from them. We did all of those horrible things to our kids. I mean, and the worst thing you can do when somebody's in prison, what is the worst thing that you could do? Worst form of punishment within a prison to somebody is solitary confinement. And we just did that with all of our kids,
Right.
and it was just backwards.
Yeah.
It went against the grain of everything we've ever done in society, and we're still paying the price. And you're expressing that right now with everything that you're doing, going around and hearing what's the suicide rates? How many kids are coming to us going like, oh my gosh, I actually am considering killing myself. What?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, how could it have gotten this bad? So, I mean, that was just, the icing on the cake. We had problems before, but
Yeah. I mean, my dad passed away during COVID, not from COVID, but
yeah,
during COVID. But my mom and dad live in a condo with elderly people,
Yeah.
and I've got three daughters, and we couldn't barely see them, and he passed away, and we had to pick 10 people
Yeah.
to go to his funeral, and that was tough, and
Yeah.
you can't, yeah, you can't get those couple of years back. That was tough.
No.
And if you watch that documentary, by the way, um, he passed away 2 days before they interviewed me. And I'll tell you this, when I was talking with the director and producer and all that stuff, and the one guy that, by the way, had like 3 Emmy nominations and saw a show of mine years ago, and he's like kind of tired of Hollywood, and he's like, I'd like to follow you and film you because maybe one day we'll need this footage for a story. And
Mm.
so we had some big guys that made the documentary, and yeah, when we were shooting it, they're like, "Hey man, your dad just passed away. Should we redo this?" And I was like, "No, let's just do it." And it was hard to do, but it brought something really raw out of me. But I had a lot of,
Hmm.
when I talked with them, they were kind of like, how like I kind of told them like, man, I was the way I was judged by my family for the music I was playing and listening to, and the director at one point was like, "Hey man, like your dad, like." You want to go there again? Like, because I talked to them about how, every kid wants their dad to be proud of them. Like, when I played sports, my dad didn't miss a game, and he was my biggest fan, and I wanted his approval in the work I was doing. Maybe he didn't like what I was doing, but I wanted him to know why I was doing it, and I had this frustration. And so the producer was like, "Rob, aren't you going to go there? Like, this earth that you had towards your dad, you know?" And I was like, "Guys, he just died 2 days ago, and you nailed it. Like some of the stuff I was taught kept me out of some trouble, even though, you know, I didn't get to see, hear some things and get a lot of movie references because we didn't watch movies at home like all my buddies and stuff. But it kept me
Hmm.
out of some trouble for sure. And
Yeah.
man, if we would have shot that documentary and I would have gone there, like, oh, my parents, and this was how my brother's in the documentary, he's very open, you'll see, of how he judged me for what I
Hmm.
was doing and the tattoos and all that stuff. But,
Hmm.
man, if I would have done that documentary and my dad would have passed away a month after it came out, and oh, that would have hurt my heart that he would have seen that. And just an update for everybody watching, like, you know, somebody came to my dad's mom and dad's door and it was like, "Hey, is your son Robb Nash?" And they were kind of like, "Yeah." Like, "Hey, can you thank him? He really helped our granddaughter." And they were kind
Hmm.
of like, "Wait, what?" It's like, "Well, you must be so proud of him." And it hurts me a little bit that it took somebody else validating me,
Yeah.
but my dad did show up for a few shows, and before he passed away, like, he still
That's,
had big earplugs in his ears. He didn't like
yeah.
what it was sounding like, but I think he knew why I was doing it. But man,
Yeah.
am I glad I didn't take shots at him. And I didn't. Now I realized I didn't finish the thought before. Like all I heard about was the fear of God, and I never heard the love of God.
Yeah.
And that's a ditch you don't want to be in. But I think
Yeah.
also we can get into the ditch too much of all you hear is love, 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 and you
Yeah.
and you don't think at all about consequences or
Yeah.
and you get caught. But it's
Yeah.
every
It goes
mile
me
there's
away.
2 miles of ditch. You don't want to get caught in either.
That's why they're on both sides of the road.
Yeah,
Absolutely. I want to ask you, have you heard of the organization called Sanctuary?
yeah,
Yes. Okay.
yeah. So I said it before we hit record here, but before COVID,
Yeah.
man, we were booked. I could have tell you where we're going to be. Like our tour schedule was booked 2, 3 years in advance, and it takes a lot to figure out our tour and get the venue booked for a week and get the funding and we pay for the school buses if the school like
Oh,
we have
wow.
we just try to do everything because schools don't get the support they need for mental health. They don't have the
Yeah.
funding, so we just do it. But so it's sad that we don't have it all, but we have flexibility now. And when I was invited to the prayer breakfast a couple
Mhm.
months ago in Vancouver, I met, yeah, um, Brianna from Sanctuary, and she
Fantastic.
said,
Oh,
"Wait,
good.
could you come do a show for
Yeah.
our?" And I was like, "Look, we always got to. We actually have. Normally, I'd say, well, we're booked for the next 2 3 years. We actually have room right now. So I'm like,
Yeah.
hey, we need a venue, and she's like, we have a venue. I was like, we need people that can bring in the kids.
Yeah.
Well, we have the kids. I was like, and we got to fundraise. Well, we could even try to help with that. And I was like, hey, we've got room in the, so if to anyone watching, it's like, yeah, we would love when we actually have room for that in this tour schedule that we're working on right now for the,
That's great. And that's so for September, this coming September?
well, yeah, we tour during the school season. It takes
Yes.
a while to set it all up, but
Yeah,
it really takes a few champions,
for
champions from
sure.
the school board, let's say, and or
Yeah.
teachers or counselors or whatever that
Yeah.
say, hey, we should work together with the Robb Nash Project.
Yeah.
It takes, okay, we have a connection to a venue, and we're often doing all this work ourselves as a project. But man, if we have local champions and some people say, hey, and I'll raise money, and to anybody watching this, like when I say I always challenge young people, hey, don't just figure out what you do, but figure out why you're doing it. Find something that stirs you, and you don't have to do what I did and rip up a record deal and start your own charity, but find something that stirs you and be a part of it. And
Mm.
even if it's an hour a week, but do something and let your kids see that you're a part of something. So if you're stirred by this conversation and you want to help us come to Vancouver and do a shows for your schools and be a part of it and come volunteer and be an usher at the show or whatever it is, great. But if you're not stirred by this conversation, that's okay. But find something that stirs you and go be a part of that thing and let your family see, because you talked about what we're lacking in the West. Like we are so hyper focused on more, and it's okay to have things. And we toured with some of the biggest bands, and you meet them backstage, and they have everything, the fame, the fortune, and you meet them,
Yeah.
and they're some of the emptiest people because they
Yeah.
stop at success and they never move on to significance. You're
Mhm.
using your success, using, it's okay to have more.
Yeah. Yeah.
As long as you're using some of that more to do something. Like people get really scared of the word prosperity, but being prosperous is having enough money to do the work
Good.
that you've been called to do.
Yeah.
So if you are walking from village to village in Africa and you've got sandals on your feet, you're probably prosperous. But if you were meant to give $1 billion to a cause that is doing something good and you're only giving millions, you're not prosperous.
Yeah.
Having enough money to do God's calling in your life, that's prosperity. And so
Mhm.
find something that stirs you. It may not be mental health and addiction and self-harm and all the stuff we talk about, from eating disorder. Like we cover a lot of ground in our shows. And
Yeah.
I don't know, Clay, I think you're still watching, but when you do this, put a link to our documentary up, and you get to not just hear me tell these stories, you get to hear the 6 kids tell their stories
Yeah.
in that documentary. And yeah, it's free to
Well,
watch on YouTube.
I'll see what we can do to put your video, your documentary on our website, on the school website as well, the school and foundation website.
Yeah.
Because I think it's something that everybody needs to see, and we'd love to promote it. And of course, we'll link it in this video as well. It's a great documentary. I have watched it. It's fantastic.
Yeah, they did a great job. It was,
And but it tells what so much is going on in the world that people don't know. And the sanctuary program, this would be go hand in hand with what you're doing. It would be a great way to help to launch sanctuary in the schools as well. That's a 12 video program, and it's
mm,
not just for people that are suffering from different mental health challenges. It's for everybody to see it, and just to be able to recognize that kid in the crowd that is maybe troubled but is not talking about it,
yeah.
and that kid that you least expect.
Yeah, and it might not be that you're going through it, but you all of
Yeah.
a sudden start looking at that kid sitting alone in the hallway. You're thinking about the kid in the, oh man, you start considering the other people. And we're now, like when we started, we really put a lot of focus on like, let's hit the grade 11s and the 12s because they're in
Yeah.
the midst of so much. Now we do a lot with work with middle schools because like
Yeah.
if we can do preventative stuff and let kids know, hey, you're going to face a tough day in your life. You may not have seen it yet, but you will, and you're gonna have to figure out what you're gonna do with it. And there's we were in Edmonton once and we did a show, and after the show we were at a restaurant for dinner and we came back out to the tour bus that a couple gave us. Yeah, I'll tell you that quick story. A couple came and watched one of our shows. They have a few bucks. So
Yeah.
if they find a cause that they believe in,
Yeah.
they think about it, they pray about it. If they have the same amount on their hearts without talking about it, they donate. So if she thinks they should give, the wife thinks they should give 10 grand and he thinks 15, they don't give a dollar. Only
Mhm.
if they independently hear the same amount. And they told us that they watched the show and they were stirred. And a week later, she goes, I don't think we're supposed to give them any money. He goes, me neither. She goes, we're supposed to buy them a tour bus. He goes, mm-hmm. That's what I heard. So they flew us to Nashville and bought us the tour bus that Adele was renting for her tour.
Oh, really?
16 flat screen TVs inside, which, by the way, sounds like a blessing until you have to put diesel in it and you have to pay for the fuel. But then
Yeah.
then a trucking company says we'll pay for the fuel.
Oh,
Anyways, we were
thanks.
doing the show in Edmonton, and because our tour bus is kind of noticeable, like we came out
Yeah.
of the restaurant and there's a guy waiting by our restaurant, and he walks up, or he's waiting by our tour bus, and we walk up and he runs up, gives me a hug, and he's crying. And I was like, oh, I'm like, are you okay? Like, what's going on? He goes, you spoke in my middle school a few years ago. I was like, okay. He goes, I wasn't going through anything tough. He goes, but a year later, my mom and dad died.
Oh, no.
And then I remembered all the stuff you said in that presentation. And I've been waiting to thank you. And that's why we do this. Like when you get to that tough day, and he mentioned it, like this quote was locked in his head. And what I tell people all the time from stage or in a conversation, I say, like, look, life is full of painful days. And another cliche people will say, like, oh, don't, like when my dad died, I couldn't believe how many people say, oh, don't worry, the pain will go away. And then the pain doesn't go away and you think there's something wrong with you, right?
Yeah.
And I say, like if you've lost somebody in your life, that pain's not going away, and it shouldn't, because
No.
that means you forgot them. And I
Yeah.
say, but listen, if pain doesn't go away, neither does the strength. If you wake up in the morning looking for pain, you will find it. But if you get up in the morning looking for strength and hope and help, you can find that too. And
Yeah.
he's like, my parents died a year later, and then I remember what you said. Pain
Oh,
doesn't go away, neither does the strength. So you plant these seeds with kids, and you're not always there to water it. You're not always there to even see it
yeah.
the when it
So
blossoms.
do you have, I mean, there's thousands of kids that lives you've touched or whatever. Do you have a favorite story that is the most impactful? Like you talked about the first one where the girl came up to you and gave you the note. And that was your first, sort of big wow moment. Is there another one that stands out with you in all of these tours that you've done that, I mean, I know there's hundreds or if not thousands in there, but
Yeah, there's thousands, but the one that's popping out to me right now, and if there's a student watching, how was I not the one? This is just one that pops into my
yeah.
heart right now. And we did a show. It's a theater, let's say 1,500, 2,000 kids from all different schools. And then afterwards, like we brought down kids from reserves all over the place. And so afterwards, I went with some elders and a chief, and we had a sharing circle. And some people might think, oh, you can't do that, like a sharing circle, and
Mhm.
you're dipping into things. But if you've never been in a sharing circle, it's really quite something. There's a song, like there's a few people with a drum and they sing, and then you get a talking stick and you share, and everybody listens, and nobody's interrupting. And if you're not holding that stick, you don't
Mhm.
talk, and then it gets passed around. So this elder said, so there's an elder here, and she sang a song, and there's an indigenous young man on my left, and he was doing the drum beat. And then so the elder said, oh, let's just go around, and you watch the show today, just talk about how you were impacted by the show today. And so this kid that was leading the sharing circle, he takes this thing. He goes, "Well, it was really good seeing Robb Nash today because last time I saw him, I was in prison." And I was like, "Whoa!" And then
Mm.
and I was like, and then I remembered him, and he was in jail. He was 15. I won't get into his story. He is in the doc. After this, I was like, "Hey, this is a kid we should follow up with." But here's a
Yeah.
kid that was in prison, for conspiracy to commit murder, attempted murder times, conspiracy to commit murder times five,
Oof.
attempted murder, a bunch of other things, and but he was 15, and again, I knew he was getting out of prison. So what are you going to do with your life when you get out?
Yeah.
And now here he was leading a bunch of indigenous kids younger than him in a opening up, and he was vulnerable in front of all these kids, and it's like I saw Rob before, and I was in prison, and don't do what I did. Don't hit rock bottom like me, like. And I'm not here to tell you any of the kids. These kids aren't still gonna have bad days and make bad choices. Like there's like yeah. Ask my kids if I've been a perfect dad or my wife if I've been a perfect husband. But it's like we have to be willing to start over. As a songwriter, man, I'm like you read what David wrote as a songwriter, and that was also a flawed man, but being willing to start over, and that's what I try to teach kids, no matter where you are. There's one thing we all have in common in this room right now, kids. We're all breathing. And the first song I always play at our show, I tell my story, and I sing a song that I wrote about my story. It's One Last Breath. Okay, I've got one last breath. What's going to come out?
Mm.
What are people going to remember? Did you impact somebody in your life? Because that, again, purpose is what's in us, what we're, designed for. That's what we crave. Not for our, like, it feels good. Like, I'm not going to deny it. It feels good to do good things, but
Yeah.
it's in our DNA. It's in our spirit that we're meant to impact the community around us and the people around us. And wow, this one's popping into my head too, but there's a young man, I'm not a counselor. I'm not a social worker. I'm not a psychologist. I always say, like, it took me a while to figure out what my role was. I'm trying to be the bridge between the hurting and the help,
Yeah.
validate that it's okay to be vulnerable and open up and get help. But there's a family friend that he had his third attempt, and they said, "Hey, can you be there when he gets released from the hospital?" And I was like, "Sure." So I went for a chat with him, and he was fired up. He was like, "Man,
Mm.
this is my life. Like, if I want to cut myself, these are my arms." Like, he was upset with his parents. Like, if I want to get high, it's my brain. If I want to kill myself, it's my life. And I looked at him. I'm like, "Yeah, but I think there's something special about you." He's like, again, like twisting it a bit, right? He goes, "What do you mean?"
Yeah.
I said, "Are you ever sitting at a red light, busy streets, and somebody stands out to you, and you're not sure why?" I was like, "Maybe she's hot, but sometimes just
Mm.
somebody stands out to you, you just notice them. Does that ever happen to you?" He goes, "Yeah, actually, that happens all the time," which I think happens to all of us if we actually take our mind off of ourselves and
Yeah.
look at your surroundings.
Of course.
I said, "Hey, I think you have a gift. Let's go for a walk." So we start walking. We're downtown and busy streets. And he goes, "What are we doing?" Just let me know if anybody stands out to you." He goes, "Well, it's really weird that you say that because when we got out here, I noticed that old woman over there across the street." I'm like, "Oh, the old woman with the walker?" He goes, "Yeah, I noticed her." I was like, "Okay, let's go find out why." So we start walking across the street. He's like, "Wait, what are we doing?" I'm like, "Let's find out why you noticed her." And I'm like, "Please let something happen here." We walked across. I said, "Hello, ma'am. Is there anything we could do for you right now?" And she starts crying. She's like, "Are you serious?" "Yeah." She goes, "I've been standing here for half hour." She goes, "My shoes are untied. And I'm scared to take another step because I don't want to fall and break my other hip. I just prayed that somebody would come and tie my shoes. Would you boys tie my shoes for me?" So it was
Wow.
perfect. I tied one, he tied the other. We got up. It was like we just bought her a car. She was so grateful. And we walked away, and he's like, "That was fucking awesome." I'm like, "Yeah, man." I was like, "You saw it?" He goes, "Yeah, I did." And I was like, "Let me ask you this." I'm like, "Do you want to get high right now?" He's like, "Not really." I said, "Want to hurt yourself?" He's like, "No." I'm like, "You want to kill yourself?" He's like, "No." I'm like, "Why? Who are you focused on?" He's like, "Her." I'm like, Let me guess. When you're cutting yourself and you're suicidal, you're alone in your room, aren't you? Most of the time." He's like, "Yeah." I said, "Maybe all those times somebody outside needs their shoes tied, and there's a voice in your head trying to get you to completely focus on yourself so you don't go tie somebody's shoes, you know?" And he was like, "Whoa." And his parents called a few weeks later, like, "What'd you say to our kid?" I'm like, "Why?" Because every day before he goes to school, he'll like go mow the neighbor's driveway or mow the neighbor's lawn or something, you know?
Mm-hmm.
He's taking his mind off of himself, and
Uh,
we have such a self-absorbed world.
oh,
Just our
do we
looking
ever?
after ourselves. Even parents are going, "I need some me time." And
Oh,
talk
totally.
about family, right? But and it like understandably, like the majority of us only look after ourselves, don't do anything for anyone else. That's a bad ditch. Some
Yeah,
of us get so focused on helping others we don't take care of ourselves. That's
yeah,
also not healthy. You'll burn out.
yeah.
But here's the kid, just go tie somebody's shoe. Just listen to that prompting you have, and it doesn't have to be significant. It can be a text, it can be a phone call, but man, do something outside of yourself. That's what. And one thing you learn in addiction is you cannot shut off an addiction. That's
It's there, 4/7, going, going, going.
You can only replace it. What are
Wow.
you going to replace it with? And well, there's a lot of
I got to write that one down.
yeah, and that's not a Robb Nash thing. That's a psychology thing. You cannot
Yeah,
stop an addiction. You can only replace it. What are you going to replace it with? And I tell you what, philanthropy or purpose, man, that is an addiction, and it's a
yeah.
healthy one. You don't like try not to do it self-granted, like the amount of people, and it's not always bad, but the amount of people like that film themselves doing something good to post it online,
Yeah.
but it feels good to do some of these things, but be careful. But man, to do something just because, and yeah, and be an ally to somebody. We all want to be.
Our our school became kind of. I'm just kind of reflecting back on it. It became an addiction for me.
Mm,
In terms of, we got to build this school, and it started out. My motivation was a selfish motivation, selfish in the sense that I wanted, especially for my youngest daughter, but I wanted a school for them to go to. They were in a great Catholic elementary school. There was no high school locally, and I wanted something for them. And there's a much longer story that goes along with that as well. Um, but quickly, that selfishness changes when you realize there's going to be tens of thousands of kids that are going to get educated
mm,
here with a fantastic foundation and moral compass guiding their lives for the next 100 years
yeah,
plus. And so all of a sudden, no, I wasn't doing this for me and my kids. I'm doing this for everybody else and their kids in the
yeah,
society that's going to benefit from it going forward. And so many incredible things. And it's become an addiction for me because
yeah,
it's what I focus on most of my day.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
and it's something, it's not my job. I don't get paid for
yeah.
it.
Right. Well, and two things can be true at the same time. Like you can do it
Yes.
for it feels good, and you wanted to do it for your kids, as well as it's the right thing to do. It's going to help a lot of other people.
Uh,
So like just because, yeah, two things can be true at the same time, and you don't have to be
yeah,
scared of that.
exactly.
Yeah,
That the day-to-day focus. It's like, well, yes, while I'm doing this for my kids and taking care of my kids, looking
yeah,
at how other people are going to benefit from this as well.
yeah, yeah,
The way you
yeah,
go.
yeah,
And there's
yeah.
where you find something you're passionate about. And yeah,
I,
so
I had a
love
friend
it.
pick me up at the airport one time. How was your flight? And man, when I walk on a flight, especially when I'm with my band, like I'm wearing my leather jacket and I'm 6'5" and covered in
Hmm.
tattoos. You can just kind of see people going like, "Ooh, I hope he doesn't sit with me,"
Hmm.
and then you sit down and they see the names on your arm and they're thinking, "Well, I wonder what those names
Yeah,
are."
exactly.
Their
They're all totally
imaginations can
fucked up.
fly. But but then people can ask about,
Yeah.
can ask what you do, or I start with my why, and so my buddy picks me up at the airport and he goes, "Hey, how was your flight?" I'm like, "Oh man, I had this amazing conversation with this person, blah blah blah," and he goes, "Oh, you suck," and I was like, What?" He goes, "Yeah, like you get on a flight and you get to have these big deep conversations, and you're like." Because people think what you do is cool and blah blah blah, and people ask me on a flight, "Hey, what do you do?" And I say, "Oh, I'm an accountant," and the conversation's over. And I said, "Well, that's because nobody cares about what you do." And he was like, "Harsh." And I was like, "Hey, but nobody cares about what I do either. Like, I hit metal strings with a plastic stick. That's what I do. No one cares.
Yeah.
They care about why I'm doing it."
Yeah.
I said, and I looked at my friend, I'm like, he's one of the most generous people, and he's he's really passionate about homeless people in our city, and he not only does he like help fund the thing, and but he goes there and volunteers with his family and his kids, and I was like, man, next time somebody asks you on a flight, what do you do? Don't start with what you do, say why. Start with why. It's like, hey, what do you do? Honestly, there's a soup kitchen in our city, and we have a real issue with homeless people. And this soup kitchen, this is how many people get fed every month, and they have these many people can sleep there, and there's medical facilities and blah blah blah. And I'm really passionate about it, and we volunteer there with as a family once a month or whatever it is, and yeah, it takes a lot of funding to pull it off. And I'm really good with numbers, so I do accounting, and that's how I'm able to raise some money for the soup kitchen. And you
Thank
just
you.
flipped it a little bit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Start with why. And again, I said it before, but I usually talk with youth, but to adults, like you want a relationship with your kid. You want to have deep conversations and show them examples of, let your kid know not just what you do, but why you do it. Let them see that you're passionate about something, that you go the extra mile once in a while for something. Those are the things that they're gonna remember about you,
Yeah.
when you're gone, and those are the influences that you want to leave with them. And
Yeah.
getting that focus back in the right place, which, as we've both said, we've kind of lost. That meaning and purpose that's been given to us,
Yep.
what
Yep.
we're meant for.
Got to bring it back. Got to
Yeah.
bring it back. Rob, do you have a last message that you want to give out to our viewers and listeners that you may want to say? Hey, now I'm putting you on the spot, but I'm
Mm.
sure you've got something in there that you can dig up and
Yeah. Um, it just, I've said it a few times here, but make every day count. Like, you just never know. And we can be so good at, oh yeah, maybe tomorrow I'll do something. But just like I said to that kid, like, open your eyes, look around when you get to a red light, and if you get stirred by something, like, open your eyes, take a look around you, see what's going on. I spoke at a conference in Toronto a little while ago, and this guy walked out, and he said, "Hey, I just want to apologize for something." And I was like, "Oh, what?" And he goes, "Well, while you were speaking, I left the room, and I didn't mean to disrespect you, but while you were talking, you kept talking about promptings, and something inside of me told me to call my college roommate that I haven't talked to in 15 years. So I went out in the hallway because I was just thinking about these promptings, and I called him, and he said that he was in the darkest place of his life, and he didn't know if he was going to make it to the weekend. And like, there was 4,000 people at that conference. There's lights on you. I didn't see him walking out, but it's in that moment. And we can get so focused on ourselves, but even as you like people go like, how do you get a prompting? How do you do that? But like, right, like when you turn off this podcast, or even right now, if you just close your eyes and be like, sometimes you think you have to figure out how to feel prompting, or how do you hear God's voice? It's like, you, how do I put it? Show him. It's like, I'm going to close my eyes, bring somebody to my heart. And all of a sudden you think of your college roommate or somebody, right? And they come to your heart. God, I don't know if that was you, but I'm going to reach out to them. And in the future, I'm going to act on this prompting right now. In the future, if you want to communicate with me, do it this way, and I'll act on that prompting. And so, like, learn. It's like, and you're not going to make a mistake that way.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to be like, close down. Wow, yeah, that guy called his college roommate. It's like, close your eyes. Like, somebody is actually, I just thought of somebody, and I'm going to call. And you don't have to, start your own charity or anything like that. But when
Yeah,
click,
you don't need to save somebody's life for
no,
prompting. It doesn't have to be anything. Realizing there's so many things to be grateful for.
yeah,
Making every day count can be as simple as being productive, picking up after yourself or cleaning up the kitchen when you've been putting it off or something. Like, it can be teeny little things,
yeah,
as listening to Jordan Peterson,
yeah.
start with these small things, anything.
Yeah, yeah, and
So,
yeah, be careful, like what you feed yourself, right? What you
yeah,
watch, what you listen to, because there's a reason. Like, stuff is going to enter your ears and enter your brain, but there's a reason it says guard your heart.
yeah,
Like, watch, like, make sure you fill your cup with
yeah,
something that's going to make you think a little bit, and
yeah,
maybe there was something that stirred somebody watching or listening to this, and then but when you click on the end of it, respond. Like, okay, let me try something. Let me see
yeah,
if somebody comes to my heart, and
yeah,
maybe I should talk to them. And guess
exactly.
what? They might not even, yeah, I'm good. And it's not, but you were obedient in that moment.
Yeah,
You stepped out, and maybe you don't find out
you took action,
for
right? You
five
acted.
years. But
Yeah,
now all of a sudden it's like, oh, okay, now it's like, oh, you responded to that prompting. Now I can trust you with more of that in the future, more
yeah,
promptings. And all of a sudden you're like, and maybe you find out in 10 years, by the way, when you reached out to me that day, I said I was fine and I wasn't. But you may not find that out.
yep.
Maybe till we're all gone and later on you find out that that conversation meant something. Or at your funeral, they say, my, yeah,
Yeah.
my grandpa, he said this to me, or yeah, he was my roommate. They show up at your funeral and they have a story to tell about you, and you may not get to hear it, but that's not what it's about. Like, you did something, and that's what we crave, and it's okay with to act on those things. In fact, I think it's what we're meant to do.
Well, you keep doing what you're doing, Rob, because
Sounds like we're on the same team.
our youth needs you. They need light shine on a light shine on these topics of mental health, and we're all in this big boat together. So we all should be helping each other and help grow in the same direction. So, and we're going to work to see what we can do to get you out, if not just to our school, but into a bigger arena, of course. We've done it already with other events. So, but this one I think would have probably the most meaning. So, and the most impact. So we'd love to work with you. And hopefully we could have you back on when you come out as well. And maybe you'll have some more great stories to share with us. So,
Yeah, that'd be great.
all right. So thanks, Rob. I'll say goodbye to everybody here as well. And please, if you could, make sure you subscribe to these videos and podcasts, and also give us comments, give us some feedback. That really helps us out. And let us know if you've got some ideas of other people you'd like to have on the show. Rob, thanks so much. God bless you for what you do.
Thank you. And if you want to hear anything else too, if you want to, our website is robbnash.ca, and you can find out more and links to the documentary and all that stuff if
Awesome.
this has stirred you.
And we'll get your video in the link here as well.
Awesome.
All right. Thanks, Rob.
Thank you for listening to Catholic Education Matters. If you enjoyed this episode, please follow the podcast on your favorite listening platform, rate it, and also leave a review. Don't forget to share this episode with your friends and family to help spread the word about the impact of Catholic education. Be sure to listen again.